Last year, Notre Dame football honestly had one of the weirdest seasons we've seen in recent memory. Despite suffering one of the worst losses in school history to Northern Illinois, the Fighting Irish made it all the way to the national title game in the first year of the expanded playoff, and Marcus Freeman went from on the hot seat in week 2 to all of a sudden being one of the most secure coaches in college football. Notre Dame had a lot of fantastic players last year, won some pretty big games, and moving forward to 2025, it looks like it'll be pretty much the same. They do have a couple of big question marks, but I think it'll all be resolved. And in today's video, we're going to continue my preview series as we will take a look at the 2025 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We'll talk about key players, last season, some of the guys they brought in, and I'm going to give my projection and game-by-game prediction. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and preview the 2025 Notre Dame football team. Okay, so before we get started, if you want to watch my other previews, I left a link down in the comment section, and let me know what school I should cover next. My goal is to do 40 of these this year. Okay, so last year Notre Dame had an interesting season, as I said. Notre Dame would end up starting last season ranked number 7 in the country, and they would face off at number 20 Texas A&M in a marquee Week 1 matchup. They ended up walking into Kyle Field, sort of controlling the game from start to finish, and won 23-13. Huge win. In Week 2, they came home for what should have been a tune-up game against Northern Illinois, but the Huskies had other plans. They decided to hang around for most of the game, and after a late field goal, all of a sudden Northern Illinois was up 2. But Notre Dame found a way to get down the field and had a miracle field goal chance. Unfortunately, that would end up not happening, as Northern Illinois would block it, and the Huskies would win. This is one of the biggest upsets in recent memory, and one of the worst losses in school history for Notre Dame. It felt like the sky was falling, but then they decided to go on a tear. They ended up giving Purdue one of their worst losses in school history, as they beat their rival down south 66-7. After that, they killed Miami of Ohio 28-3, and then in a top 25 matchup at number 15 Louisville. This game actually was close, but the Fighting Irish won by 7. Alright, they are now 4-1, and people weren't sleeping on them anymore. They would destroy Stanford 49-7, beat a good Georgia Tech team 31-13, and now were number 12 in the country. They'd face off with their next top 25 game against number 24 Navy, and they would beat the brakes off of the undefeated Midshipmen. That game was 51-14. From there, they played a struggling Florida State team and won 52-3. And after beating Virginia 35-14, all of a sudden the Irish were back in the hunt for the playoff. They would now play another undefeated military school in number 19 Army, and they would kill them 49-14. They would play one final regular season matchup, and that would come on the road against USC. And after the game was somewhat close, there were a ton of pick sixes, and they would beat USC 49-35. Notre Dame had finished the regular season with an 11-1 record, with 3 wins over top 25 opponents. This would be good enough for them to get into the college football playoff, where they would face off with Indiana. The Hoosiers were one of the darlings of last season, and in the first game in the expanded era, they would take an early dominant lead, and after letting off the gas a little bit in the fourth quarter, they'd only end up winning by 10 instead of what should have been 3 or 4 scores. Sure, it wasn't great, but they won. After that, they'd face off with number 2 Georgia, who had a new quarterback in Gunnar Stockton, and in this game they would control it from start to finish, winning 23-10. Alright, Notre Dame was going on a playoff run. They'd face off with number 4 Penn State, and in one of the most thrilling games of this past year's playoff, they'd end up winning 27-24, and were off to the national championship. Unfortunately, Ohio State was just the better team, and Notre Dame ended up falling behind and could just never catch up, so they lost by 11 points. It was somewhat close, but they were always one step behind. Notre Dame almost won a national championship, but they didn't. The team would end up going 14-2, and after that disastrous game against Northern Illinois, they were nearly perfect. In terms of last year's top players, Riley Leonard would end up throwing for 2,861 yards, 21 touchdowns, and he also ran for 900 yards and 17 scores. He was one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. At the running back spot, Jeremiah Love became one of the best in the country, finishing with 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns, and this came in a crowded running back room, as Jadarian Price also had 746 yards and 7 touchdowns, and true freshman Aeneas Williams also ended up having 200 yards. The running back spot was really solid, and receiver was honestly not as good. It was definitely a committee approach, as Jaden Greathouse, Bo Collins, tight end Mitchell Evans, receiver Jordan Faison, and transfer Chris Mitchell led the way for the Fighting Irish. As I said, they had a committee approach to the receiver spot, but it ended up working for them. Homegrown talent Jack Kaiser led the team in tackles with 90, Defensive tackle Riley Mills led the way with 7.5 sacks. Corner Leonard Moore led the way with 11 pass deflections, and Xavier Watts led the way with 6 interceptions. They ended up losing a lot of talent to the 2025 NFL Draft, as the Fighting Irish had 6 players selected. Corner Benjamin Morrison fell out of the first round due to an injury, but still went in the second round to Tampa Bay. Safety Xavier Watts went in the third round to Atlanta. Linebacker Jack Kaiser went in round 4 to Jacksonville. Defensive tackle Riley Mills went in the 5th round to Seattle. Tight end Mitchell Evans went in the 5th round to Carolina. And quarterback Riley Leonard ended up going to the Colts. They had a couple of other players go undrafted, but having 6 guys sent off to the league was really good for them. In terms of their 2025 recruiting class, they ended up bringing in the number 12 class in the country, headlined by linebacker Madden Feriamo, safety Jaden Blair, and wide receiver Scrap Richardson. They had a couple of other big names who did not enroll early, and in terms of their transfer portal haul, it would end up ranking 62nd in the country. That's code for they didn't really care. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't have any big names, as they grabbed a couple of good receivers in Will Pauling from Wisconsin and Malachi Fields from Virginia, 4-star safety Devontae Smith from Alabama, and another big-time safety from Virginia Tech, and Jalen Stroman. One of the key things to watch for Notre Dame this year will be the quarterback spot, as Steve Angeli was supposed to be the starter, but he decided to transfer away, I guess meaning he wasn't going to win the job. This leaves 4 options for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, as they'll have CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, true freshman Blake Hebert, and then former guy Tyler Buckner. Buckner's just there for an emergency reason, but it sounds like CJ Carr is probably going to win the job, as he was a near former 5-star and has had a ton of hype. If he wins the job, I'm super excited for that, but Minchie is a little bit more athletic. In terms of the running back position, they bring back one of the top backs in the country in Jeremiah Love, and then they also have Jadarian Price, who returns, and Aeneas Williams, the sophomore. Those 3 guys should get plenty of snaps, and then Kedron Young and Jabron Payne should also get some reps. The wide receiver spot is going to be interesting, as Malachi Fields from Virginia is definitely going to be one of the starters, and then in the slot you'll return Jaden Greathouse, and then at the other position you'll have Jordan Faison. Those 3 guys should be the starters, but Will Pauling I think will also get an opportunity to get on the field. Elijah Burris should be able to step up, and then both Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams will also play. At the tight end position, they have a couple of guys fighting for reps, but Eli Raridan I think will be the guy there. In terms of some of the other important players on the team, as I said, Jeremiah Love is probably the most exciting guy on the team. At offensive tackle, you'll have Emil Wagner, linebacker Drake Bowen should step up, and I'm also excited to see Christian Gray take the next step. I'm not going to try to go through the depth charts because they are super inaccurate and honestly kind of boring, and I don't want to mislead you guys, so I think this year will be sort of like last season. The running backs will dominate, the wide receivers will be alright, and hopefully CJ Carr can be as good as Riley Leonard. We'll have to wait and see, but Notre Dame kind of has the same team every year. In terms of their schedule, this one's going to be a lot of fun. Their first 5 weeks are extremely difficult, as their first game is on the road against Miami. The Canes will now be led by Carson Beck, so it'll be a step down from Cam Ward, but this game will be difficult. It's on the road, which should be against another top 15 team, and honestly, I don't know who to pick in this one. I think Notre Dame is good, but I have no idea what to expect out of the quarterback and receiver room, and outside of Jeremiah Love, there are some question marks. Because of that, and I think a rowdy crowd down in Miami, I think the Canes pull off an upset on ABC. 0-1 for Notre Dame. In week 2, they'll come back home and play against Texas A&M, and the Aggies are led by their second-year quarterback Marcel Reed, and I think they should be exciting, but as I predicted in my Texas A&M video, I don't think they go up to South Bend and win that game, especially if Notre Dame loses in week 1. The Irish are back to 1-1. Purdue now has a new head coach in Barry Odom, but that doesn't mean things are going to be any better in West Lafayette. Last year, Purdue had one of their worst losses in school history by way of the Fighting Irish, and that won't change this year. This game is at home, and I think Notre Dame will be finding their stride. Purdue has no idea what they're doing at pretty much any position on the field except running back, and I think it's going to be a disaster. 2-1 for Notre Dame. After that, they go on the road to play against Arkansas, which is a game I never really saw coming. The Razorbacks head coach Sam Pittman is currently on the hot seat, and I have no idea what to make of this year's Arkansas team. They're either going to blow up and win 9 or 10 games, or they're going to be at the bottom of the SEC, and for now I think it'll be the latter. Taylon Green has a lot of potential, but will he be able to elevate his play and elevate the team? I don't know. They also lost to Quinton Jackson and Isaac Tesla, so there's a lot of question marks for Arkansas, and despite this game being at home, I think Notre Dame wins it in the second half. 3-1 now. After that, they play another team from the college football playoff, as they will face off with Boise State. Obviously, Boise no longer has Ashton Genty, so they have a ton of work to make up for on offense, but Boise should still be solid. This game is at home though, and even with a player like Genty, I'd still probably pick the Irish, so Notre Dame is now 4-1. To round out the first half of the season, they will play at home against NC State. NC State is not as good as they used to be. They got a couple of their best players poached in the portal, and I don't really have an opinion on this game. I think Notre Dame wins this one pretty easily, and that gives them a 5-1 record for the first half of the 2025 season. The second half honestly gets a lot lighter for them, as that first game will come against USC. I know that rivalry is somewhat in jeopardy right now, but USC is going to be interesting this year. We'll see if Jaden Mayava can take the next step at quarterback, or if they'll throw 5-star quarterback Husan Longstreet to the Wolves. Either way, I think USC will be alright, but I'm not anticipating them winning this game. Honestly, I expect them to lose by probably 2 touchdowns, and Notre Dame will win this game under the lights. After that, they'll go on the road to play against Boston College, and it's sort of the same story here. I don't really know what is going on with BC, and Bill O'Brien is a decent coach, but I just don't know if he has the juice to win this one. He'll have a new quarterback in Dylan Lonergan by way of Alabama, but honestly, I'm kind of curious to see how Boston College will take shape this year, and while maybe it's somewhat of a trap game, and maybe Boston College is really good by then, I doubt it, and I think Notre Dame wins this one. After that, they return home to play against a military school in Navy, which is always a fun game for Notre Dame, but Navy's honestly not that good, and they haven't beaten them any time recently, so there's no reason for me to think that's going to change. Notre Dame will now get to 8-1. After that, they go on the road to play against Pittsburgh, who honestly was one of the best teams through the first 8 weeks of last year, but then completely imploded. Pitt went from 7-0 to losing out, and it was a disastrous end of the season for the Panthers. But Pitt does return a couple of key players, including quarterback Eli Holstein, and if there's any game in the second stretch of the season that I would pick Notre Dame to lose, it would be this one, but I don't really have a reason to. Notre Dame probably wins that game by 2 scores. After that, they come home to play against Syracuse, and right now this game is intriguing on paper, but I don't really think it's going to materialize. Syracuse had a breakout season in year 1 under Fran Brown last year, but they lost their top running back, their top 3 receivers, and their star quarterback. There is just too much to replace, and I also think Syracuse got lucky last year, so Notre Dame wins this game pretty easily. After that, they play the easiest team on their schedule in Stanford, who's in complete disarray and has nothing going for them. Maybe Stanford blows up out of nowhere, but I highly doubt it, and I think Notre Dame wins this game by a mile and gets back to the college football playoff. That put them at an 11-1 record, or it would obviously depend on the matchup. I think because of how difficult the schedule is, Notre Dame will definitely be battle tested, and I would probably pick them to win a game or 2. Again, I'd have to look at the matchups, but my official prediction is that Notre Dame goes 11-1 with that early loss to Miami, but honestly, you should circle games against Texas A&M, Arkansas, USC, and Pitt. Those all could be trap games for the Irish, but I think on paper they are better than every team they play, except maybe Miami. Yeah, that's my official prediction, and if you're a Notre Dame fan, let me know what you think down below. What did I get right and wrong? What's your official prediction? Who are the top players for this year's team? And what team should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen, including my video about Texas A&M. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.